Okay, everyone. Um, Welcome to our webinar today. I'm glad to see all of you. Really nice to see familiar names as always. My name is Hilary Stupa. I'm a developer with Qdabra software, and I want to get you up to date on the FormsViewer app model changes. Now, this slide contains some information, and the following slides also contain some information that we talked about back in April, in our April webinar when we first brought this topic to your attention. I want to recap just in case you weren't at that webinar or in case you still had some open questions about things. I wanted to make sure we are all starting on the same page. So we're going to talk about, what are these app model changes about and who's affected, how they're affected, what this means for FormsViewer, and more importantly, what this means for you. And then also we're going to talk about some updates for our implementation and planning. And I have a little demo to show you so that this stops being kind of a nebulous thing of what's it going to be like, and instead you can actually get more of a sense of what these changes are going to look like, okay? So Microsoft back in November announced that they were going to be retiring the add-in app model in SharePoint. Now, when we created FormsViewer back in 2013, that was the recommended app model. But as with all companies using technology, things change, companies move forward. I'm including a link in the slide deck to the Microsoft announcement, but basically what they've said is they're retiring this particular app model and they want us to focus on different app models going forward. This is a phased retirement schedule, thankfully. Like so many things, anybody who uses SharePoint Designer workflows knows about phased retirement. So as of right now, as of July 1st, 2024, FormsViewer is no longer available from the SharePoint store. So if you spin up a brand new tenant and you go look in the, or you've never installed FormsViewer before and you go look in the store for Qdabra Forms, you will not find it. If you create a new tenant as of November 1, 2024, the tenant won't support these SharePoint add-ins. So at that point, the only way you could use FormsViewer is with our latest version that has an intra-ID app model available. As of April 2nd, 2026, no more add-ins in any tenant. So FormsViewer, as you use it right now, getting it from your site contents, will no longer be supported in SharePoint Online as far as add-ins go, okay? So that's kind of an important distinction. If you're using SharePoint on-prem, at this point, Microsoft is saying that they're not targeting the add-in app model for deprecation. So if you're using SharePoint on-prem and you've got your add-in, your FormsViewer add-in uploaded to your app catalog there, at this point, the information we have is that this is not a target for retirement. Of course, if you're not using SharePoint, you have no worries. You maybe have other worries, but you don't have worries about this particular thing. The people who are affected are people who are using FormsViewer in SharePoint Online, and that is both if you are using a private instance of FormsViewer, one that you have installed on your own server, and if you're using our public cloud instance of FormsViewer, one that you got initially from the store, or via uploading to the app catalog in your tenant. Okay, so that's who's affected. Microsoft has recommended that we move to intra-ID based apps. It pretty much has the same ability to query SharePoint resources. It just on the infrastructure side, it's different. So the stuff we're doing in the code is different. The way it behaves, absolutely the same. So for you, for your users, nothing different, okay? We've got a new version of FormsViewer just released this week that supports both of these app models. It supports the new app model and it continues to support the add-in app model. Making sure we don't disrupt you and making sure we don't disrupt your users is of highest priority to us. So users of the add-in app model, which is probably most of you, you can just continue using it as usual at this time. If you're a brand new customer, you're just coming in, you will probably want to use the Intra ID app model, and you'll need to upload the latest FormsViewer extensions, which we've renamed. We're calling it Qdabra Forms Launcher, and you'll need that to launch FormsViewer. I have a demo for you later that's going to show you this, just so you've got a sense of what this looks like. So if you're using public FormsViewer and SharePoint Online, right now, you don't need to make any changes. Everything should just keep working as normal. You've probably already installed FormsViewer either from the store or from a tenant admin uploading it to your app catalog, and it's going to continue to work just as it always has. You'll find it in your site contents just like you always have. And if you create a new site or a new site collection, you should be able to just add it the same way you have with a, go to the app menu and be able to add it. And I'll show you that in my dev tenant in my demo, okay? Sometime prior to this April 2026 retirement date, where they're going to completely deprecate add-ins, we're going to provide you a way to migrate to the new Intra ID app model. This is most likely going to be just a web page available to you in your current FormsViewer instance with a button you click that allows you to grant the correct permissions to this app. So if you're SharePoint Online, public FormsViewer, a tenant admin is likely going to have to click a button, and then there's going to be a consent window that pops up, and they'll grant permissions. Okay, so it's going to be a minor action. Those of you who are using public FormsViewer, we have insight into a database table where we're storing whether you're using the SharePoint app model or the Intra ID app model. So we'll be able to follow up directly with you folks as things progress and make sure that prior to April 2026, all of you are converted. So again, we can help you there by keeping an eye on things. If you're using a private version of FormsViewer, the responsibility becomes more yours because we don't have that insight there. Again, with private FormsViewer and SharePoint Online, no immediate changes are needed. The app should still continue to function as normal. You're going to keep finding it in the normal places. You're going to add it in the same way you have if you create a new site or site collection. When you get ready as a private FormsViewer user, when you get ready to move to Intra ID, you're going to have a couple more steps. There's a few things you're going to need to do in Azure. There's a couple things you're going to need to do in your configuration, your FormsViewer configuration. We're here to help you every step of the way. We're going to have documentation for that. I've had an opportunity to test that documentation, so it's in pretty good shape, and we're getting pretty close to being ready to help you with your on-prem move to Intra ID. And again, this is the deprecation date is in April 2026. So we are, we're well ahead of the game here. So if you have concerns, let me know. But we've got lots of time here still. If you're using private FormsViewer and SharePoint on-prem, like I said, Microsoft is saying at this point that we're not deprecating the add-in app model there. The good news for you folks is that FormsViewer is ready to support the Intra ID app model, and we'll be ready to support you to convert over to it if and when the time comes that needs to happen with SharePoint on-prem. So feel free to reach out if you've got questions or concerns, but at this point, I think you folks are going to be just fine. And again, no SharePoint, no problems. Everything continues as normal for you. If you're a new customer, you're watching this online, I don't know if we've got anybody new actually attending. These instructions are subject to change. This is what we know and think right now. But please reach out to us at support@qdabra.com if you need assistance evaluating Qdabra forms. We want you to have a successful experience. But most likely, either the tenant admin will upload Qdabra Forms Launcher to the app catalog, or once we get Qdabra Forms Launcher into the store, a user would be able to add it from the store. I'll show you what this new version looks like, and you can open up your FormsViewer main page from a link provided there. If you're using a private FormsViewer instance with SharePoint Online, again, same configuration instructions we're going to provide to our customers. Those also are subject to change and edit, but please reach out to us and we're happy to help you get up and running. So here's what's done, you guys. We've just released the first iteration of FormsViewer that allows this hybrid app model. We've been testing it internally as we've done this work. My dev tenant, which is where I'm going to show you some things, is set up to use a test version of this that has this enabled, but this has now been released publicly. Although we are not yet providing you with a way to switch over. It would be more for new users at this point. It supports the SharePoint Add-In App Model and the Intra-ID-based app model, letting you continue to work without disruption. We've released an update to FormsViewer extensions. We're calling it Qdabra Forms Launcher now because we've added this additional functionality. And this is going to help Intra-ID app model users access the main FormsViewer page, because since we aren't using the add-in app model any longer, FormsViewer won't be in your site contents any longer. And you're going to need to know how to get there, right? We've got to make that easy. Our estimated time of arrival for these pages to allow tenant admins in the public FormsViewer SharePoint Online scenario to convert your tenant over to the intra-ID based style app model. We're hoping to have that to you in October of 2024. So that's our estimated date for that right now. And we're working on getting the Qdabra Forms Launcher app into the SharePoint App Store. That's a SharePoint Framework app, so those are still supported in the App Store. And once those are in the SharePoint Store, that means that, you know, you're not a tenant admin, but you want to give FormsViewer a try, you'll be able to add it and grant specific permissions to it that allow you to test it. So without further ado, I've got a little demo, and then I forgot to put in a slide for questions, but of course I will want any questions you have. So I know I have in these webinars before encouraged people to create a Office 365 dev tenant, and I encourage you to create an Office 365 dev tenant. If anyone needs a link to that in the Microsoft ecosystem, just drop me an email. You guys know where to find me and I'll help you find a link. Here's our updated FormsViewer extensions. You can see rebranded Qdabra Forms Launcher configuration. I'm going to edit, I don't want to edit that page with this user. One quick section, I'm the wrong user. Okay, here I am. This is me signed in as me. And so I'm a tenant admin here. You'll see right here that this FormsViewer URL, this probably looks a little different from yours because this case I'm using the test version. And so I'm going to edit this page. And what we have now is we have a new, let this open up. Oof, come on, SharePoint, doing its thing. We have a new, there it is. Let's get that web part edit. We have a new.
So sorry, just a quick question. This is the FormsViewer extensions, and some people may not be familiar with this.
Mm-hmm.
Should we set a little like a little intro on what FormsViewer extensions is?
What FormsViewer extensions is, it's a modern SharePoint web part that you can use to configure lists and libraries to easily open existing items with FormsViewer. When we initially released FormsViewer, we provided people with a JavaScript solution for this that they would then use in their classic web parts. But as everyone is encouraged to move to modern in the modern SharePoint ecosystem, the Qdabra Forms Launcher or FormsViewer extensions is our tool for allowing you to configure lists and libraries to open items with FormsViewer forms, including giving you a new button that you can use to open a new template.
That's awesome. And for those who haven't actually seen this, we did a lab in our last training in November of 2023, December. So you can go back to that. It's on our YouTube channel. But this FormsViewer extensions is really cool because it makes it a lot easier to add configurations to lists for modern lists, so you can quickly open the forms without having to use that JavaScript hack that Hillary mentioned.
Yes, and another interesting point about the JavaScript approach is that Microsoft has recently gone to turning off the custom script settings on sites. So you can still turn those back on, but it gets turned off again in 24 hours unless you run a PowerShell to make that change sticky. And what that means is if you've been using the JavaScript, you go and you edit your library page, you edit the web part. Down in the miscellaneous section, there's a place to put a JS link. That box goes away. So the JavaScript continues to work, but your ability to configure that for a new library is taken away unless a tenant admin turns back on custom script temporarily for you. Reach out to me if you're having any trouble with that, and I'm happy to send you and or your tenant admin some additional documentation and information on that. Sorry, that was a digression, but it might be of value to you.
The JavaScript thing is only for Classic, right?
That's for Classic, that's correct. Yeah, so we have this new setting here, FormsViewer domain name. Now in this case, I'm using this one. This is our test instance, formsviewer.test.azure.websites.net. We have some help text here. If you're using the public instance, it's going to be what you see here, qfs.formscrow.com. If you're using a private instance, it's the first part of your URL, but reach out if you need help. So that's how that's configured, and you can see it provides a link now to Open FormsViewer. And instead of accessing the intra ID FormsViewer from your site contents as you're accustomed to, you will access it from a page where you've configured Qdabra Forms Launcher. I'm signed in over here as a non-tenant admin. So you can see the initials up here have changed to AV. So here I've signed in as a non-tenant admin. I'm just a regular user. And so I can come to this page, my FormsViewer extensions page. And when I click on this link, I haven't granted access as a tenant admin to the Intra ID app. So what will happen is I will be prompted for consent just for my own behalf. Now this user, Adele, is not a tenant admin. And so this is what the consent box looks like when you're a non-tenant admin. The access that you will not have if you do not grant tenant admin rights is pretty much everything except anonymous forms. Which is why we want to get Qdabra Forms Launcher into the SharePoint store, because it will make it very easy for, a regular site collection admin to just go check it out, right, without having to have the whole tenant admin must grant consent. When a tenant admin goes and grants consent to the app, in the case of these existing public FormsViewer, SharePoint Online situations that many of you are in, they'll have an extra little checkbox down here that says grant consent to the entire organization or something along those lines. So a tenant admin can check that box, click accept, and now we aren't granting permissions on a per user basis. So I wanted to make sure you had a chance to see what this consent pop-up looked like, so you would have that, information and understanding of what things were going to be.
Quick question here, Patrick, again. Is this user just a general user? Or
yeah, this is just a plain old user. This is just, yeah, she's just this user is actually one of the nice things. I know I go on and on about these dev tenants, but one of the nice things about the dev tenants is it will create these 25 test users for you and give them all the same password. It's fabulous. So at any rate, this is just a general user, and they can accept, and this would give them access to FormsViewer at that point. As my tenant user over here, I've already granted permissions just for myself. And so I can use that launcher, click the link, and it takes me to my traditional FormsViewer main page. Notice now how it says Intra ID over in the corner next to my username. Because we support both models right now, we're including a little bit of information with your user ID. So when you open up this FormsViewer main page and you're on version 9.2.0, everybody on this call who's an existing user will be seeing SharePoint probably there in the parentheses instead of Intra ID. But this is just some additional little information to help you know when you've moved. So you can see this all looks just like normal. It all works just the same. It's just a change to the structure. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is I created this brand new site this morning. So this is a brand new site that I've just created. On my tenant, I have installed regular FormsViewer, the SharePoint app model from the App Store. I did that before the retirement in July 1. And I've just created this new site. And if I go to my site contents, you know, this site does not have FormsViewer. It's very easy to see that. But if I want to add the app, it's still available for me here. So even though we've got this yellow bar, it's been retired, can't install, etc., because I've added this to the tenant previously, I can still add the app here. So you should be able to continue to add the app as you have been in the past if you create new sites or site collections.
What about, is that true for any site collection in the site, or is it like it does have to be underneath some hierarchy?
This is my brand new site collection that I created. Let's go to the root site and see if FormsViewer is installed there. I'm pretty certain I did not install it on the root site, but let's find out. Because you never know with me, guys. I could have done something nuts. It's always best to double check. It's always best to double check. So here's my root site, and you can see I don't have FormsViewer installed here. I'm pretty sure that the site collection I initially installed it on may have been like this Mark 8 or new comms. I'm so boring. New, you know, we've got brand new today. So yeah, but it was initially installed on a different site collection. And yet here it is available on this site collection, right? Which is webinar sample. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else while I'm screen sharing that I've elided over, glossed over, not given enough information on that you'd like to see more information on? And feel free to type
over.
a question.
I've never used that word like that before.
Oh, well, perhaps I've used it wrong. It happens.
No, I'm sure you're using it correct because you're an English Lit major. It's amazing you become a developer.
Perhaps I know, but I will conflate words. So I'm just going to pop back to my slides. Please ask questions if you have them. And as always, I'm here. If you guys, you know, I know for me, a lot of times I have to digest and think before I come up with questions. You can find me at hillary.stupa@qdabra.com. You can email support@qdabra.com. We want to make sure that everyone is informed about this change and that everyone is comfortable and confident about what's coming and that we're communicating this well to you. And so if you have concerns or questions, I want you to reach out and let me know so we can make sure, oh, I did have a question slide, I'm a liar. So I can make sure we get the information to you. As our FormsViewer users know, this is the easiest way to move away from InfoPath form services. We are supporting almost everything you're doing in your forms at this time, as well as adding amazing new features that you can't have in InfoPath. And we're here to help you whenever you need help. I mean, with form stuff, right? I mean, we can't do everything, but just let me know if you need help, if you have questions, if you have concerns. We're more than happy to explain, as you can tell, in as much tedious detail as anyone could want. So yeah, just let me know if you need more information. And I'm so glad you were able to attend today. Jimmy is not here; he's on vacation. I want to encourage. I'm sorry, not encourage, but I want to thank Jimmy for all of his very hard work, you know, on getting this set up so that we can all have a smooth change. We've had a question about whether or not the classic JavaScript links will still work when you move to Intra ID. The answer to that is yes. So I tested when I was testing the SharePoint to Intra ID switchover. What I did was I copied out the links of my forms that I was using in SharePoint ID mode, and then I use those exact same URLs to access my forms in intra ID mode. Now, intra ID mode does not require the same number of URL parameters. Like, you guys are used to these really long URLs in public forms viewer in intra ID mode. It doesn't require all of those. We're including the SharePoint URL parameters still, because so many of us are relying on that for data connection changes and so forth. So we're still including that URL parameter, but the old URLs, they work just fine. It's not a problem.
Hillary, sorry to interject, but
No,
this 24-hour thing, what was that all about?
Oh, the 24-hour thing with the JavaScript links. Okay, so the JavaScript, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm sorry, I am sharing my screen. I'm going to show my taskbar again. I should be able to show you that here. So many of you are aware that when we go to use JavaScript in our classic web part view, the link to the JavaScript goes into a field on the web part that says miscellaneous JS links. I'm going to go here to a document library, and I'm going to return to classic SharePoint, which always makes my heart hurt just a little bit. And we'll go, I'm sorry, I can't help it. I don't love it anymore. And we'll go to edit page. Okay. And here, edit web part and miscellaneous. All right. Now you can see down here we have no little box under display search box to enter our JS link. Okay. That is because over here in settings, custom scripts is blocked. Now, what's been happening, and what I've been helping some clients with, they've gone to set up a new library on a site where they've been using JS links for other libraries, and they go to set up a new library and that JS link setting is missing. It's because custom scripts are blocked. You can click edit and click allowed and click save, and this takes effect right away. Now, in the old days, when we changed this setting in Central Admin in SharePoint Online, it could take up to 24 hours to take effect. The new thing is, when you change it, it'll switch back within 24 hours. Now, there's a PowerShell script you can run to make this setting stick. But
don't you have to be tenant admin for that?
You have to be a tenant admin for any of this. And you have to run this PowerShell script to make the settings stick before November 2024, because apparently the parameter that does this is going to be taken away. So Catherine, who asked the question, I'm going to send you links to documentation. Please, guys, let me know if you need any more information on this setting and on the possible workaround to get this setting to stick. And I will send you links to the documentation so that you've got it. At any rate, tenant admin says save and confirm. And then what happens here is we are going to hit cancel, and I'm betting I'm going to have to refresh this page. Yeah, that's fine. Let's hit continue, and let's see if refresh was good enough for what we're doing here. Miscellaneous, look at that. There's my JS link, okay? Now that's going to go away again in 24 hours. It'll keep working, but it's going to go away in 24 hours. So very long story shortened, your JavaScript links should continue to work in your classic views because intra-ID mode supports the same URLs that non-intra ID mode supported, that SharePoint mode supported. So that should not be a problem. However, those of you who are using these classic views in this approach, you may find your JS link box, your option to do that in a new library, disappearing on you. And let me know if you would like some additional information on that. And Catherine, I'll send you information because I know you're using that. Do we have any other questions?
It's kind of cool that you mentioned this thing about having the Qdabra form launcher added to the SharePoint App Store, the old SharePoint App Store, as kind of a bridge.
Well, it's this is not this is the SharePoint store is is the SharePoint store. You know, it's still there.
So,
it's still
why
there.
did they decide to disallow these? They're allowing some apps, but not all apps.
Certain types
Why
of
did they?
apps. So
Right.
here's the
Why did they do
documentation.
that?
This is a black box, right? This is a black box. They're stating that as part of their evolution, they're retiring the SharePoint Add-In Extensibility model. Period. It's not, you know, there's no, this documentation is about the technicalities of it. They're saying, look, this is, we're retiring.
It's not about the Entra ID being more secure or something like that?
Well, I think we all just need to read what we'd like into this. You know, they strive to deliver value through modern, optimized, secure solutions in this newly evolved world focused on digital transformation. So I encourage anyone who feels confident in their interpretation of marketing speak to try to get something technical out of that paragraph, right? But I can't. I can't get anything technical out of that paragraph.
I mean, there's multiple paragraphs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. I sorry. Hillary, great to see this stuff. Really awesome presentation. And does anyone else have any other questions? I mean, we're as surprised as everyone else is. Obviously, we've been working really hard to make sure that we have you covered, as Hillary was saying. And thanks, Logan. Stuff, yeah. I'm not sure it's great stuff, but we're happy that you're happy. We're going to make sure that you're everything is going to be hunky-dory for you. And thanks, Evan, for that comment as well. But yeah, thanks to Jim and Hillary for this awesome response to Microsoft's very quick change here. And we have a lot of interesting stuff going on right now. We're committed to getting Form Designer finished before the July 2026 rug pull from Microsoft on InfoPath. We are actually we have hired new developers. We're actually doing a lot of work here to make sure that we have you covered. We also have a lot of new AI features, including the ability to create new forms from a PDF. And we'll be doing webinars on this in the near future. We've got probably 2 or 3 new AI webinars. If you haven't seen the previous AI webinar, I would encourage you to go to our youtube.com/Qdabra channel and take a look at. We did a great one last month. It was a bit long, but Sweta did a great demo of the QForm chat AI features. You can add a task into your forms to help users validate the data and support them as it's like a concierge service. Thanks, Hillary.
Well, and thank you, Patrick, and everyone who attended. Thank you so much. Again, reach out with any questions, reach out with any concerns. The landscape is changing. This is what we know right now, and this is what we've got going on right now. And we will continue to keep you updated. Keep an eye out for newsletters. Keep an eye out for webinars on these topics. And again, we're working towards making things as seamless and as smooth as possible for you. So thank you, everybody, for your time.
Excellent. Way to go. Talk to you later.
Bye, everyone.